Hey guys, tonight we're embarking on a journey to the past. A time when the idea of going to a hospital was about as appealing as, well, a soggy sock. Imagine the glow of your fairy lights reflecting gently on the nearby shelves, rain tapping softly on the window, creating a cozy symphony. With fuzzy socks on and a pup curled at your feet, you probably won't survive this stroll through memory lane. But don't worry, you've got a friend with you. And sure, the dog too. Before you get too comfy, feel free to tap like or subscribe, but only if you're genuinely enjoying the calm around here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little journey reaches. Now go ahead and lower the lights. Maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's drift gently into tonight's story together. You wake up on an oddly bright morning in the heart of medieval Europe. Somehow, the wooden beams above look a little cruder. The air feels a bit heavier, and the scents wafting in are a curious blend of incense and, let's be honest, a not-so-pleasant musk that could rival the morning breath of someone who forgot to brush their teeth for a week. Now imagine trying to Google medieval amenities, only to realize, oh wait, that's not a thing. You might think you'd rather stay cocooned under those blankets, but the outside world calls, specifically the somewhat alarming world of medieval medicine. As you step into the unfamiliar, you find an old stone building, looking about as inviting as a pop quiz on a Monday morning before coffee. This, my dear friend, is where you'd have sought treatment if you were feeling under the weather a few centuries ago. And believe me, the experience isn't quite as thrilling as opening that overly complicated new gadget we all love to hate. The hospitals were more like refuge centers, a mishmash of whatever could fit within those stony confines. Historians still argue whether medieval hospitals were more about caring for the soul or genuinely about healthcare. The rooms were often larger, and not in a good way. Imagine sharing your space not just with your fellow patients, but also with whatever livestock decided to drop by, brought in on the whims of traveling healers. Cozy is not the word one would use here. Let's wander a bit into what happens when you first enter. The nurses, if you could call these folks that, seem more of a curious bunch, bobbing and weaving through the space like they'd walk straight out of a fairy tale. Few of them had formal training, a notion which some modern TikTok life hack mavens might relate to, though I'd wager the nurses weren't trying to win a beauty challenge or dance craze at the same time. Now, here's a wild tidbit. Hospitals back then were as much an entertainment hub as a place for healing. People would come and sing. Others would perform skits. So if you're thinking hospitals today need more lively playlists, believe me, they've got nothing on the medieval crowd. Of course, none of these entertainments could distract from the damper reality that medicine wasn't quite, well, medicine as we know it. As you shuffle through the stone corridor, your nostrils filled with the smell of herbs, and not the soothing kind you'd get from a calming chamomile or a snoozy lavender candle. The herbs used were often medicinal herbs with exotic names and pungent smells, akin to that unmarked jar in the back of the cupboard you don't remember buying. Meanwhile, the doctors, or perhaps practitioners of what may generously be called healing arts, bustle around. Honestly, if TikTok had been around back then, I'm sure we'd have a few misguided but entertaining vids of medieval doctors' processes gone awry. Doctors often relied on the theory of humors, those dreaded bodily fluids that sound eerily like a science project gone wrong. they'd be assessing your phlegm levels like how we now assess our unread email count. An overwhelming task, more often leading to hasty decisions. Now, the wild part is this. One medieval doctor was reputed to have said that if God wanted you to be cured, it would happen by his will alone. And that's the facepalm moment. The I just ordered groceries but really want takeout of medical practices right there. Yet, their dedication was admirable, even if it was sometimes misplaced. Let's be real. With concoctions that could include anything from ground frog to herbs, you may start to feel a little sick just hearing about it. Much like the times we were forced to eat Brussels sprouts, even today. Historians still puzzle over which treatments were truly believed to work and which were simply shrugged off. A few laughable experiments that just happened to be tried en route to something better. So, as we step out of that time-hopping escapade, remember the places may have faded into the annals of history, but the stories remain. Throughout the realms of medieval hospitals you've tiptoed through, know that comfort is in knowing we're here, in this cozy world, where not everything has to be an ancient medical mystery or leech-infested bathing hour. Walking deeper into the slightly eerie world of medieval hospitals, you realize that the concept of cleanliness wasn't quite as universally cherished back then as our modern obsession with hand sanitizer or Marie Kondoing the medicine cabinet. Picture this. You're standing in a dimly lit room that smells like every grandmother's failed attempt at canning pickles, along with that curious mix of aged wood and damp stone. It's like stepping into the 1400s version of a chaotic vintage shop with very inefficient ventilation. As you explore, you find the quiet hum of activity, the kind of outdated bustling that you might expect from watching a black and white sitcom with a touch of melodrama. The soundtrack, the soft shuffle of personnel, whispered prayers, and conversations mixing with the sporadic clink of some tin thingamajig. Tools that look more like props from a medieval horror show. Trying to figure out what's what in this place is like using a GPS in a neighborhood that hasn't been updated since your grandma's grandpa was a toddler. But time to wander over to the apothecaries, those quirky spots where medicine was mixed with a dash of magic and a sprinkle of guesswork. Honestly, these apothecaries would have been great content creators, donning wild robes and employing the kind of wild antics you see when someone's trying to start a trend out of things like cooking an entire meal with mystery ingredients. Imagine entering one of these apothecaries with a sore tooth and being offered the medieval version of an unboxing video. What's in the mystery vial today? So here's a fact that frankly leaves a sour taste. Many potions contained what they called medicinal ingredients, which today would get quite a side eye at any health inspection. Items included herbs we'd use for cooking now, but also a few dubious choices like animal parts, red coral, or even shaky doses of arsenic. Something tells me that medieval medicine was a fine mix, a rather unsettling game of chemical roulette at times. You turn a corner where light filters through a high-set window, catching a glimpse of a tiny segment of what some might be tempted to call medicine, others might call a performance. There's a bit of drama in every gesture, like the world's slowest mime troupe silently communicating, "We're not quite sure this will work." At this moment, you almost expect someone to whisper, "And now we wait." Now, here's where medieval folk and their insatiable thirst for remedies take a strange turn. Leeches. Yes, those small, squiggly things that, if seen at the back of the fridge, would make you question your life decisions up to this point. Historians still argue whether leech therapy was actually effective, or if desperation and gold-tinged faith in their healing powers just made it irresistibly trendy. Can you imagine needing a doctor's appointment now, and instead of looking for an available time slot, you'd be searching for a leech slot? With the sun setting over this spilled ink of time, you bid farewell to the apothecary's ambiance. You sort of feel like giving a polite wave to the memory of those herbs and spices staged like a Broadway cast of The Importance of Being Absurdly Medicinal. Because, honestly, trying to navigate this historical maze of trial and error medicine is like scrolling through the history of your most Googled late-night queries. It's kind of a mess, but intriguingly yours to own. The quirkiest part of all this is that even amidst the chaos, relationships were built, communities formed, perhaps knitted tighter with the ties of shared absurdity and a whole lot of prayers. And believe it or not, many people did manage to find healing, even if the ways were as ear-splitting to our modern perspectives as trying to update a resume while propped on your living room floor. Drifting back, you realize there's a comfort in the progression, knowing each generation marched onward through missteps and hidden successes. So, as you lean back into your own modern sanctuary, remember that while humors and leeches are past news, the warmth of understanding and the curiosity to know more are always in style. As your imaginary tour continues through this ye-old medical museum, imagine the air hanging with a mixture of mystery and a slightly medicinal tang, something between a forgotten incense stick and your fridge whenever you hope it magically restocks itself. It's a setting that feels more like rereading your old childhood diary entries than a sterile nook of healing. Now let's dig into another slice of medieval absurdity, the barber surgeon. Picture these folks like a crossover between a haircut entrepreneur and a daring surgeon. Yes, the very same place you'd go to trim those unruly bangs, or loop-de-loo them curlers, was also the spot you might find yourself getting a limb patch-up. And if that doesn't make you chuckle with historical disbelief, where you could end up walking out with a new hairstyle and fewer teeth, then I don't know what will. Honestly, the barbershop in medieval times was arguably more multifunctional than any jack-of-all-trades job ad you've accidentally applied for during a coffee-deprived morning haze. And let's be real, the idea of someone handling an amputation or bloodletting in the same layer of space where they're shaving Lord Edward III's beard is like, weirdly all-purpose yet profoundly unsettling. These barber surgeons grew as skilled as your neighborhood hairstylist, who's learned everything from cutting to dynamic shoulder massages to customer therapy. Picture blades as gleaming as freshly polished spoons, tools clanking in ways we'd only expect in the most suspenseful cooking show competitions. Researchers today still scratch their heads, asking whether the skills truly ran deep, or if the lines between barber and surgeon blurred more than a poorly taken photo on a bumpy subway ride. Amidst all this medieval multitasking, you'd occasionally find moments of genuine proficiency, much like sifting through fleet-of-the-finger, fast TikTok life hacks containing something truly useful. It's as if a cosmic hand would flick an unexpected thumb up, that some procedure actually worked out with minimal screams and optimal health outcomes. Okay, so here's how things went. We've only touched on medicine, but what about the hospital buildings themselves? Imagine grand, looming structures, filled with corridors that practically begged a ghost story to be written. They often had chapels inside, which sounds nice and all until you realize they frequently doubled up for treatments and, well, prayers. Think of these spaces like that unused guest room you keep around just in case. You know, for stress-induced cleanings around the holidays. Yet, despite all the peculiar practices, there's a charming resilience to how people manage their health concerns. While the lack of direct science sensationally impresses itself, so does human tenacity when surrounded by the unknown. When I think of this, a little light flicks on. A bit like those late-night impulse buys that promise to change your life, but instead just clutter your closet with a vibrating belly button lint remover. The objects didn't always change much, but the people and their endeavors shaped history. In conclusion, as the spectral walls of medieval hospitals start to melt back into the fabric of your modern-day couch, feel thankful for the strides made since then. Your robed ancestors may not have had it all figured out, but their budding curiosity and assortment of oddities paved the way to where medical practices are now. No more leeches trying to serve a purpose. When it's late and you're scrolling with 2% battery, pretending it's your ninja skill to find the perfect cat meme, remember that every age had its quirks, much like your favorite pair of mismatched socks. Cozy, warm, and just a little bit crazy. As you cozy up deeper into the snug ambiance of your present-day haven, those fairy lights casting a gentle luminescence across the not-quite-clean living room floor, we're continuing to wander through the twists and turns of medieval medical practices. Now, let's touch on something a bit more pungent, the intriguing use of herbs. Imagine an earthy aroma filling the air, a blend of rosemary, thyme, and something uncannily bitter, like the aftertaste of realizing you've sent a half-typed email. In the medieval world, these herbal mixtures were more than just pantry staples. They were pivotal forces in a hit-or-miss battle to conquer ailments. You find yourself seated in a room filled with the rustle of dried leaves and vials rattling gently like wind chimes, accompanied by the clink of an iron cauldron that may or may not be harboring yesterday's attempt at health in a broth. Here's a quirky tidbit. Physicians of old were practically in-the-flesh potion masters, crafting what they hoped would be life-saving elixirs. Unaware, they'd later inspire hours of binge-watching fantasy genre blockbusters. Illustrate it like this. Imagine Shakespeare's apothecary from Romeo and Juliet becoming the influencer of his time, doling out likes in the form of smelly but possible cures, each like a surprise package you're not entirely sure you can return. These concoctions often drew inspiration from both culinary and bizarre sources, with herbal medicines, including ingredients sourced from beeswax to ground pearls, though one could hardly imagine asking for these at a modern pharmacy. The oddity takes a turn for the even more eccentric when you consider that during this time, mugwort and mandrake were hyped up like the next TikTok dance. You almost imagine the medieval herb gatherers as wild-eyed artists, clutching their botanical discoveries like prized designer handbags. An age-old debate echoes down the centuries. Historians still argue whether the reliance on these herbal mixtures was genuinely effective, or if it was more like trying to update your life plan with a paper map in the digital age, hopeful but inherently lacking direction. People would trust their well-being to these brews, much like how we put trust in apps promising fitness in 30 days while never leaving the couch. Some of the more successful substances did remarkably stand the test of time. Others, well, faded into the oddities of history, like those once in vogue VHS tapes gathering dust. The beauty, however, lies in the mystery. Wasn't it grand that, Amidst these clumsy attempts, they created a tapestry of learning experiences. We chuckle at their fumbling ways, but there's a comforting pattern of trial, error, and eventual progress leading into our current world of less curious Band-Aids and Tylenol. And though we laugh, we understand. You and I both know the feeling of trying to trust our emotional healing to mood playlists and soup broth. Imagine medieval folks, akin to us, thinking a lake dappled with sunlight possessed healing magic. The way a video of fluffy kittens can sometimes be the balm you need on a trying day. Whether it's the mystery or relief in connection, humans have always sought comfort in some form of magic, be it herbal, digital, or cat video based. Now, as the evening hushes around you and the room fills with the gentle hum of settling dust and fading daylight, feel the embrace of history's long ago whisper through time. See, even our old world friends have their spots in our modern hearts, as unexplained as attempting to puzzle together meaning in the random. Pull that blanket closer, close your eyes, and wrap yourself in the intrigue of knowing that our baby steps forged a path, paved with the odd, the wonderful, and the endlessly human. As the evening drapes its velvet darkness over your cozy corner, a peculiar calm settles, a warmth like the scent of freshly laundered sheets. We drift further into the heart of our medieval hospital, pondering over the peculiar yet captivating practices that would make today's world shiver with bemusement. Picture this. You're in a room where the flickering candlelight dances off walls adorned with shadowy silhouettes of limp herbs. The air heavy with a mixture of musty, smoky ambiance, much like the foggy confusion that cloaks your mind when you wake suddenly at 3 a.m., wondering where you left your phone, downstairs, or perhaps the wormhole of your bedsheets. In medieval times, it wasn't just the air that was thick, but the beliefs themselves, as wide-ranging and patchy as any password manager overflowing with forgotten passwords. Let's chat about superstitions, a word that takes us swiftly into the territory of intrigue and the secondhand embarrassment when a password reset reveals just how many Pets 1 passwords you've recurred. Historically speaking, medicine was fertilized in part by folklore and the tickle of a feather from superstition. People clung to curious beliefs with the tenacity of onto each repeated affirmation, crisscrossed over the tapestry of life. Here's an open question that still tickles the scholar's fancy. Were some of these cures truly effective, or did they work because everyone desperately wanted them to? Could belief, raw, unadulterated human hope, indeed sway the outcome? Is it whimsy or whispered power when a patient leaves with what they call a charismatic cure? Get this, they held talismans, believing their mystical potential could weave health out of thin air. Kind of like your friend who insists on carrying a lucky charm to every job interview, as if it's the amulet itself, not the 4 coffees consumed, that brought them victory. Some historians still debate whether these talismanic aids contributed directly to recovery, or if they merely helped cushion one from worry. It's akin to streaming a beloved series when stress bombards you from all sides. Sometimes distraction is treatment in another name. Often, the methods of medicinal care would jolt you awake faster than 15 alarms you've coaxed into silence, rather than your feet onto the floor. Take, for instance, priest-physicians who'd prescribe prayer alongside potions. The mingling of spiritual advice alongside herbal ones transformed treatment into something verging on melodramatic, all soundtracked beautifully by chanted verses echoing through echoey halls like your Spotify future nostalgia playlist. Interestingly, the high-ranking church members wielded enviable sway over patients, and medicine and theology formed an odd partnership, rivaling PB and J. In spaces where faith and health knotted into one, it was akin to trying to find balance through another curated collection, be it digital or an eclectic mix of remedies. Something remarkable happens as you let these images swirling around your imagination settle. It's like standing at life's edge, bundling the mundane into vibrant pictures. Whether it's finding your way through a dreamy landscape of folklore or the well-tread paths of modern certainty, both lead us somewhere uniquely precious. Thus, you're woven into winding stories that somehow echo the connections in our present. Hanging in the ether, they transcend the pages of any forgotten manuscript, blending the cautious and humorous tones of then and now. As the narrative cradles you warmly, whispers of prolonged questions and pondered rituals create a lullaby that rocks you gently to rest, both through the tales of yesteryear and beyond. And as you slip further into that softness, perhaps alongside the hum of a fan or your phone's soft buzz, you know that history's narrative will always find a home here, a glow stretching from the fingertips, nuzzling into the spaces between fact and imagine that. As the fairy lights gleam their last twinkling lull above you, and the world slows its pulse into night, let's meander gently into yet another twist of medieval medicine. This time, we find ourselves amidst the soulful stirrings of musical remedies. Yes, music as medicine. It's like when you play your favorite song on repeat, while staring at the unread notifications as if they might, by some magical persuasion, vanish. Imagine stepping into a hospital where the cure sometimes involved a troubadour strumming strings, notes echoing like ghosts across stone floors. Songs of healing floated through the spaces, a melodic balm meant to soothe an affliction, or perhaps cajole a weary spirit back to itself, filling the room like a cozy Spotify playlist in an intentional, albeit primitive, HD. Here's the thing. Music was believed to have powerful effects on health, not unlike the serene comfort of reconnecting with an old favorite track. The bard of your time, if you will, picture them gently plucking their string instrument, strumming the nerves into a gentle sway akin to the delicate rinse cycle of a favorite sweater, cleansing away the anxiety residue tangled in the threads of daily life. You're probably guessing, did it work? Historians still bat around this question, trying to uncover whether these soothing sounds carried therapeutic weight or were merely a well-intentioned distraction, something like scrolling endlessly through cooking shows while making instant noodles. Could it indeed have led to a kindling of the mind's rejuvenation, or was it like crossing fingers after sending a risky text? Even though the direct impact of music therapy remains a scholarly debate, its presence in the holistic healing toolkit highlighted medieval society's deep-rooted belief in interconnectedness. Consider it the medieval equivalent of holistic browsing through a wellness blog, convincing you that 5-minute scarf DIYing could become a crucial niche hobby, albeit minus the modern tempo of coping. In some curious establishments, you'd find not just musicians, but an entire cast of characters weaving tales and engaging patients. Souls eased into well-being by tales as layered as a poet's verse, spread across the parchment or the air. The hospital was at times a stage, the patients a compassionate audience as they were lulled with epics or comedic relief. A shared storytelling venture, much like binge-watching a favorite series that holds your laughter and tears. Reuniting with a rusty friend who knew just how to make you feel all right. Seriously, imagine walking out of the ailment hall learning not just recovery, but a new limerick. As if ancient TikTok was relaying life tips through view-constricted theatrics, rolling across space and time. Ultimately, as with herbs and charms, the notion of care extended into the ethereal, including the bedrock belief that mending the heart through cheer and melody would bolster one's strength. A charming assertion indeed. And as our ambling narrative brings you back here, tucked into comfort, and your ragtag ensemble of mismatched bedtime dignity, feel the harmonious connection. Listen as the music of history whispers, leaving you lulled beneath the night's velvet canopy, the same song strumming quietly through ages shared, and fall into that serene embrace where time weaves us all softly together. Gently, gently, good night. In the soft, gentle world of your late-night sanctuary, where blankets cocoon you comfortably, the laptop hums a lullaby, and your half-melted ice cream valiantly clings to frosty survival. Let's take another step deeper into medieval hospitals. This time, we venture into the curious world of fevers and how they were treated back then. Imagine a time when a high temperature was more than just an unwelcome visitor. It was a signal for all sorts of peculiar remedies and beliefs to froth up like an overpoured mug of ale. Imagine waking up with that achy feeling we all know too well. The one where even getting out of bed seems like too much. Like facing the avalanche of hilarious memes on the group chat after being offline for a while. Back in medieval times, fevers were a puzzling menace, often interpreted as wayward spirits or an imbalance in those infamous bodily humors, making them seem like the timed-out games of biological Russian roulette. Now, here's a curious fact to chew on like a piece of medieval hard bread. One common remedy was the therapeutic embrace of steam baths, much alike today's spa retreats minus the Instagram documentation. Picture not a luxurious spa, but a stone chamber with humid air, where patients would sweat it out in hopes of warding off the ailment, much like you would fight off that determined cling of Monday blues. In that steamy warmth, you'd find yourself enveloped in an odd kind of communal treatment. A circle of fevered souls sweating in medieval solidarity, each with their own personal shepherds guiding them through a chanting symphony of hopeful recovery. It was part medicine, part ritual, and maybe just a dash of, if we all believe hard enough, it'll probably work. Historians still argue whether these steam baths actually held curative powers or whether they simply offered distraction and relief, the way scrolling endlessly through Twitter can pass the time more than solve real-world burdens. An implicit charm tied to the belief was that sweat, this divine body-born rain, could purge illness. Imagine positing that to a modern-day doctor and seeing their stoic face desperately trying not to twitch into a smile. Speaking of delightful oddities, let's meander over to another fever fix, the art of bloodletting. It's less cute than it sounds, and probably more aligned with attempting precision cuts and culinary escapades gone wrong with enthusiastic intent. Bloodletting was one of the common practices where, quite literally, you'd drain portions of one's blood as if trying to balance a not-so-great soup, seasoned with a hope for equilibrium naturally. Leeches, of course, joined this absurd festivity, merrily sucking away, while practitioners watched with the curious satisfaction of someone slowly nursing a half-churned, undone ice cream creation to improved consistency. It raises the tempting question of whether the effectiveness lay in the curing, or perhaps the befuddling societal belief that it had been tradition and thus revered. Whether bathing or bleeding, medicine thereafter wove an elaborate dance of hope, tangled with slightly misplaced optimism, and maybe a few half-baked superstitions being carried along like confetti from an unsettling celebration. Yet what emerges from this is another guiding whisper of camaraderie, where belief and treatment walked hand in hand, however queerly charming. So, as these historical practices fade like murmurs into your modern nest, delight in knowing that every curious chapter cups the shared human resilience to endure, and yes, even chuckle in hindsight. Ultimately, no fever now shakes with the strange fervor of old beliefs, but their flickering echoes ripple gently through your dreams, guiding your imagination with tales, ticker taping across dreamscapes as we nurture the deeply human, enduring bond of healing and hope, settling deeper into the night beneath the warm cascade of blankets and nestled into pillows that sigh a tired welcome. Our journey through time stops next at a sight both beguiling and bewildering: the intertwined duo of medieval hospitals and surgery. It's a tale as tangled as any set of holiday lights, filled with heroic feats and enough eyebrow-raising moments to compete with reality TV. In our medieval world, surgery wasn't so much the glamorous, life-saving procedure we've met on screen, with surgeons dramatically pulling off their masks. No, it was more like an intense team-building exercise, its success hinging on equal parts experience and sheer luck. Imagine stepping into a room saturated with an air of anticipation, the murmured hope that this might end well, woven through like a quiet refrain. Here's a fact to fill your cozy nook. Surgery back then was often carried out by barber surgeons. Picture a barber pole, with the cheerful off-white red and blue stripes, signifying that within the establishment, you could get both a fresh haircut and a painful abscess drained, possibly on the same visit if you were feeling particularly adventurous. It's a bit like your vet also claiming to be a mechanic. Strangely versatile, slightly concerning, but an amusing notion nonetheless. In this medieval era, when pain relief was but a dream, surgeries were swift. The practitioners snipped, sawed, and bandaged with speed that rivaled how quickly you'd rush to turn off an embarrassing ringtone at a quiet gathering. Historians still scratch their heads and debate about how effective or disastrous these surgical forays were. Did patients genuinely stand a chance? Or was it merely a dance with fate, a blood-spattered gamble with the gods of health? Yet, amidst the seemingly chaotic orchestra of medical mishaps, there were those like abdominal surgeries to remove bladder stones performed with a mix of skill and divine enthusiasm that captured the attention not just of patients, but curious onlookers as well. Encouraging tidbits of success whispered hope through corridors, even as the unending backdrop of infections played out its ceaseless refrain upon recovery beds. And oh, the infections. Back then, the concept of germs was as alien as portable Wi-Fi. Picture a world where surgeons not washing their hands between operations was the norm, and antiseptic more of a wish than a weapon. It's akin to binge-watching a show on medieval hygiene, where every episode ends with the cast wondering if they were a bit too optimistic, despite all the discomfort and genuine danger of the times. This era's air buzzed with an unwavering belief in progress, comparable perhaps to buying yet another self-help book with every intention to read, and then add gently to an ever-growing collection, which may or may not also contain a secret stash of cosmic but poorly thought-through ideas, nestled beside the equally untouched adventure travel guides. As our wanderings reconfigure, and these snippets of the past hum around us like the lull of a familiar bedtime tune. There's a sense of profound curiosity aligning with identity, how we coped with uncertainty, and that determined resolve punctuating the promises of a kinder morrow. Back here in the present, with the world tuned down low and the hum of comforting darkness surrounding you, breathe in deep, trusting your dreams to shuttle you forward through history. Whatever stories you find heist past, cradled as softly as gentle waves upon a land, know that each fleck of yesterday reveals itself deliberately within a casket of learning, echoing through the kind darkness till the dawn whispers awake. As the night wraps around us like a favorite sweater, warm and a touch oversized, we find ourselves drifting ever deeper into the curious tapestry of medieval hospitals. Our next chapter unfolds like opening a long-forgotten book filled with peculiar stories about the role superstitions played in medicine, where folklore and healing coexisted with a whimsical charm that only history could weave. Imagine a world where every ailment bore whispers of enchantment and every cure was steeped in the miraculous. To live in such a time was to feel magic in the very air, much like the tingle of excitement that surges when you find money in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn since last winter. Medieval doctors were often both healers and custodians of this arcane wisdom, blending remedies with a flair that would have made any potion-brewing Harry Potter character glance over approvingly. Now, let's indulge in one of those quirky tidbits. Physicians often turn to astrology for guidance, aligning treatments with celestial patterns. Picture this: a patient anxiously consulting not just a doctor, but also the stars, hoping the moon's gaze might enhance the efficacy of their prescribed herbal brew. It's akin to debating whether your morning coffee is somehow more transformative when shared with the sunrise. A belief in the aligning powers of fate, and caffeine. Historians still delight in discussions over the extent to which these astrological beliefs genuinely influence medical outcomes, or if it was a collective comfort. Much like carrying a lucky charm, did it truly sway the hand of destiny? Opinions hang like constellations in the cosmic quilt, yet even the skeptics can't deny that magic has its place in the unfolding story. There's something endearingly human about holding a deep, intrinsic belief that the stars above could somehow offer insight into the rather pressing concerns at eye level. Adorning this celestial pageantry, you'd find charms and amulets nestled close to hearts, believed to offer protection against illness. Silken pouches containing everything from precious stones to difficult truths, like that one pair of shoes you never wear, but keep for emergencies. These talismans, symbols of hope and magic, were often carried with a reverent belief that their mysterious power could repel disease, much like holding onto a security blanket during a thunderstorm. As we journey through these whimsical practices, imagine the medieval patients exchanging tales in hushed tones, sharing stories of healings and near miracles, each tale perpetuating the fabric of folklore threaded into everyday life. It was a dance of fear and faith, a parable of perseverance that, over centuries, slowly woven into the scientific bedrock modern medicine stands upon. So now, as the moon casts its gentle glow upon tonight, and you let the cushion of night lull you into slumber, feel the blend of enchantment and realism stir within your mind. It's the same enchanting embrace that draws us into cozy mysteries and stories from whence we came, a nod to the magical interplay of heaven and earth, just as dynamic today as it was then. Dream sweetly, wanderer of the shadowed past. knowing that stardust stretches across ages, casting magic both old and new, hidden in tales that will gently cradle you until morning comes, whispering through the world's softening edges. As the timeless hush of night deepens, you find yourself wrapped within the sweet solace of stories told by those long gone, like whispers of a cool breeze brushing against a lace curtain in a forgotten sunlit room. In our journey, our next step finds us in the heart of the age-old dilemma, where medicine shook hands with mysticism within medieval hospitals. And you might feel like you're teetering on the edge between an enchanting dream and a history lesson worthy of its own theatrical plot twist. In those days, one curious practice revolved around diagnosing ailments using something more flamboyant than scientific rigor, a phenomenon known as urine casting or uroscopy. Think of it as a precursor to today's lab tests, but with a touch more flair. Imagine physicians dropping vessels of varied urines under candlelight, pondering its hue and clarity, like a sommelier swishing wine, guessing vintage by aroma alone. It's an image that inspires bewildered amusement, akin to reading predictions in tea leaves or wondering at a magic 8-ball that's stuck on "Ask Again Later." These medieval health practitioners scrutinized every shade and swirl, believing every bubble and tint told a tale of the body's secrets. It was a time when bodily functions provided a window into one's health as unconventional as examining a broken iPhone screen to see why it won't charge. You leaned on hope and guesswork, wanting it to work simply because, believe it or not, it often did. Or rather, gave people reason enough to think it could. This brings us to a debate that still simmers in the halls of academia. How much did these urinalyses truly reveal? Was it effective diagnosing or merely an elaborate show? Historians ponder this like an elusive riddle threaded with as much insight as legend. Did readings hold medical revelations or simply ripple with placebo comfort? The jury's still out, yet debates mirror the same dance of logic against instinct we each face in life's everyday puzzles. To distract from the sometimes eerie shadow of uroscopy, enticing charms played as vigilant companions. Medieval folk clung to charms, often stamped with indecipherable symbols or adorned with vibrant colors, believed to contain the mystical properties to repel misfortune just as fervently as we'd use an obscure password to deter a cyber dilemma. Some bore protective inscriptions, turning spoken word into a talisman, a belief so robust it thrived despite the winds of skepticism that time inevitably ushered in. Among these charms were those fashioned especially for pregnant women, to ward off harmful spirits intent on mischief, much like penning a precautionary just-in-case email backup. It was a dance of hope, faith, and a sprinkle of the supernatural that could well enough see you through till tomorrow. Think of it as a nightlight, its gentle brightness curving into soft familiarity when night feels too wide and open. And so, in this tapestry of traditions, as one chapter closes, feel the threads of these far-gone tales weaving through you. The wonderment swirled into legend. Tonight, as sleep enfolds you tenderly, know that the journey bridges not just time, it strings the essence of mystique, health, and soul, tangling through barriers of time, curling to rest beneath the blanket of stars we all gaze upon. So drift gently, with whispered nods to the secrets of yore. You, quietly treasuring these shared stories, sighed out, suspended in the delicate perfume of nightfall's calm embrace, in the serene cocoon of late night, where the world responds to dreams with a tender hum. We return to our medieval adventure, stepping quietly through the corridors of history with bare feet, as not to disturb the sleep-born whispers from those shadowed halls. Now, imagine a time when the line between healthcare and hospitality blurred like your vision on a sleepy morning, trying to decipher if the alarm really said snooze or just wanted to say hello. Medieval hospitals weren't always the austere institutions their name might suggest. Many were akin to welcoming sanctuaries, offering warmth and respite for both the sick and the weary traveler. Akin, in their way, to modern hospitality with a medical flair. These places enveloped their guests with a mixture of spiritual care and down-to-earth remedies. Hospitality and healing intermingled freely, like wind and scent blowing through an open kitchen window. As dusk settled, candles would cast their flickering glow upon rows of stone beds, where ailments paired with murmured benedictions sought the relief of communal prayers. Tended by monks and nuns in sacred silence, the infirmary would fill with soft hymns, an age-old lullaby stitching the delicate silence between hope and healing. Here's a comforting morsel of history. Monasteries with infirmaries attached were sometimes the first to offer what we might now call organized social care. In these sanctum-like spaces, the sick received care indiscriminately, an early whisper of the world moving towards equality in treatment, even if laced with pearly tradition and uncertainty. Picture a sweeping cloister garden, where medicinal herbs, rosemary, thyme, lavender, grew with patient wisdom, their scents curling into the architecture like an unspoken promise. These gardens were the apothecaries beneath the open sky, a potion room kissed by sunshine, and a soothing testament to survival through nature's bounty. Consider this vivid little quirk. Favorable weather was often marked as nature's nod toward successful healing. A crisp, sunny day, much like today's unexpectedly pleasant weather wrinkle, was considered a rare blessing, a divine message in the celestial inbox, if you will, signaling perhaps a patient soon to recover. We might call it an ancient Snapchat from the heavens, a timeless charm that never quite lost its glow on hopeful eyes. Now, here's where historians still muse. Were these places more of a hospital or more of a hospice? Did they heal? Or did they provide solace until the final breath? The answer tumbles through time, just as indecisive as our seasonal wardrobes. Nonetheless, there remains a respectful tenderness that continues to echo quietly in our own approach to care today. By the warmth of candlelight and through the unwavering hope sewn into each patient's journey, time ebbs with gratitude and stillness. The stories circling the medieval fireside continue to breathe wisdom into the night. Lessons embroidered into shadows over the years, now fluttering gently onto your own contemplative landscape, as easily as autumn leaves freed from branches into a twilight dance. Tonight, as the world curls into its own embrace and you drift through this echo of care, know that even as centuries pass, the heart remains. In dreams, may we all find that sanctuary somewhere between the heartbeats of the present and those whispered secrets of the past, cradled by stories untold and knowledge yet unfurled. A gentle assurance to drift away till dawn's soft hand tugs once more at your dreaming heartstrings in the tender embrace of night's quietest hour, where the world seems wrapped in a hushed lullaby and your thoughts weave thin threads into dreams. We continue our gentle exploration through the time-worn halls of medieval healthcare. The path now drifts toward the notion that even in an era marked by rudimentary resources, there existed a wealth of community care and shared humanity. A little like a group chat silently unmuted, everyone quietly listening and occasionally nodding in understanding. Imagine walking through a medieval town, the cobblestone street echoing underfoot like a forgotten melody, past homes crowded close in a conspiratorial huddle. Within these walls, neighbor and stranger alike sought solace in the community, a far-reaching network of caregiving that blended resistance with reverence. These were times when illness was a shared adversary, one faced with a spirit of camaraderie stronger than any binding spell. As the customs unfurled, you'd find a world where neighbors set aside daily quarrels to lend hands and nurture the sick among them, creating a makeshift cocooning of kindness in their shared existence. Think of it like a neighborhood watch, yet instead of thieves, they guarded against the spread of illness and against loneliness, that creeping shadow which often compounds suffering further. In a sense, they orchestrated their protection, much like we coordinate diligent communal efforts today. A distant echo of core human persisting long after our shadows have danced away. Here's a delightful tidbit. Many medieval communities had informal networks with women at the helm. Those who knew the whispers of herbs and the remedies carried down through generations. Midwives and wise women whose instinctive care was trusted, albeit with a side of superstitious respect. It's akin to having your rock star granny double up as a local health influencer, offering side-eye wisdom and potent tonic advice in the same insightful breath. The kind who could likely read a fever, if not the stars, and prescribe precisely timed sips of broth. Historians still discuss whether such community practices bridge the divide between folk healing and formal medicine, or if they solely perpetuated age-old beliefs. Were they guides through the shadowy valleys of illness, or simply bearers of tradition, twirling hand in hand with luck? Nevertheless, these collective efforts provided far more than medicine or miracles. They fostered a warm sanctuary of trust and togetherness, shelter from the stormy battering rams of solitude. And nestled within these communities were customs brightened with a peculiar oddity. During times of plague or sickness, townsfolk carried pomanders, perfumed containers of herbs, to ward against the ill humors in the air. Can you imagine an atmospheric parade, each person toting fragrant talismans, the scents twining through alleyways like holiday lights with intentional passage, scents binding hopes against illness like an invisible shield? As we breathe in this ancient wisdom, let it settle into your conscious like a kind word spoken under the stars. A reminder that across the ages, tenderness has stitched communities together. And as you float closer to the shores of sleep, know that this dreamtime journey captures not just the fragility of past practices, but the enduring strength of kinship. With the moon casting its gentle silver across the room, let this tale embrace you in warmth, melting into the peaceful cradle of night. There's magic in this connection, a quiet promise curled gently as leaves before dawn, whispering into eventual daylight, softly as a parent's goodnight kiss. Sleep now, with the knowledge that the stories of then continue to twine their fragrance through today, connecting us in ways as precious as each gentle breath. In the hushed solemnity of the night, where time seems to stretch softly, like a cat arching into a long, luxurious yawn, we find ourselves nestled again in the antiquity of a medieval hospital, an era where aspirations, much like constellations, threaded across the dark velvet of unknowing with hopeful persistence. Within our sleepy narrative, we turn now to explore the peculiar cost of care, a distinctly different yet charmingly complex facet of medieval life that you might find as unexpected as receiving an insightful text from a decades-old fling. Imagine a time when the question of healthcare payment was tangled in a web of community support, donations, and the occasional barter, a financial tapestry woven with vibrant unpredictability. In medieval hospitals, care could often be offered free of charge for the poor, supported by almsgiving, a tradition reflecting a societal heartbeat of charity deeply stitched into the fabric of everyday life. A potluck of sorts, everyone brought a little something to the table, and it was this shared offering that fed the system of care. This brings us to a charming tidbit that could brighten even the sleepiest mind. Hospitals often offset their operational costs through gifts both predictable and whimsical. Some patrons offered funds, while others contributed wine, grains, or livestock, a practice akin to crowdsourcing on social media platforms today, but with real tangible resources turning the wheels of healing endeavors. It's like the medieval equivalent of donating to a casual GoFundMe cause when you're feeling kind and slightly embarrassed about your last, oddly specific purchase history. Walking through the imaginings of these historical experiences, perhaps consider the dialogue around medieval care priorities. Historians still debate the motivations behind various donations. Were they truly selfless acts, or performed in pursuit of salvation points, like spiritual brownie badges, earned through good works? The picture dances upon the canvassed realms of morality, with hues as varied as an artist's soul-stirring palette. The line is blurred even now, as motives mirror the complexity of human nature, undulating like waves on a hesitant shore. If the common people were fortunate, they received care without demand for reciprocation. Yet others, a class of character unto themselves, opted for a mutual exchange, providing labor to the monastic establishments. You see, while payment proper wasn't tangible coin, it certainly existed in valued proficiency or crafted offerings, a uniquely medieval take on will work for healthcare, more akin to skill swapping than our modern transactional landscape. And were there any peculiar trades? Well, partly. Imaginatively, unheard but infinitely delightful. Picture a carpenter thrusting himself into a fervor of repairs in return for treatment, or a weaver plying her loom to create comforting tapestries for patients' solace. As fanciful as these stories may sound, they create tapestries of historical caprice, spirals of reality amidst the scrolls of lore. So, as you unfurl tonight's recount alongside dreams, let the stories of yore tuck around you, much like a grandmother's beloved quilt, wrapped in shared whispers and gentle weaving. The bygone echoes form a lullaby hushed upon your senses, embodying not only the care exchanged, but the timeless connection spun with knowledge, warm as the firelight shared in open-hearted community. Gently, as you slip into sleep's serene embrace, the disparate voices from the past blend with your own reveries, serenading you softly toward a dawn cradling endless potential, and hope woven seamlessly through the rich tapestry of time. Sleep well, traveler of boundless night. As the quiet depths of night cradle you ever more softly, the tales of yesteryear gently pull us back into the realm of medieval hospitals, where time seems to unfold like a worn map, inviting you to trace its lines and touch upon its forgotten stories. This evening, we pause to explore the noble order of monks and nuns who were the hospital keepers during these unforgettable times. A circle of dedicated souls tending to those in need with the same devotion one might give to a cherished garden, cultivating both blooms and balm. The dedication of these religious caregivers formed the beating heart of medieval hospitals. Imagine them moving through shadowy stone halls, whispers of their robes kissing the cold flagstone floors, a chorus of quiet diligence accompanied by gentle murmurs of prayer. Their commitment was to provide solace and care with a grace that rippled like sunlight over calm waters. Meanwhile, outside the protective confines of monastic walls, the world pulsed on with a vibrant, sometimes chaotic rhythm. Picture them, these caregivers, offering not simply medical attention, but spiritual succor. Souls engaged in a ballet of divine duty, their intentions as pure as morning dew, adorning a spiderweb, glistening in first light. It was an intricate dance of body and spirit, where both were nourished along a pathway guided by faith and ultimately converged on a single horizon, much like the way our daily journeys reflect in the broader patterns of our lives. Here's a charming little morsel of trivia for your midnight musings. The daily routines of these hospital caretakers were simple yet profound. From the first light of dawn, their day unfolded with precision, punctuated by bells, each chime a signal for the next slice of duty, much like a modern-day calendar alert, but infused with soulful purpose. Their every action, from meal preparation to bedside prayer, was imbued with attentiveness, humble gestures steeped in a belief that even the smallest act could bear enormous impact. Historians sometimes ponder whether this melding of spiritual care and medical practice served to elevate the effectiveness of treatment in medieval hospitals, blending as it did a nurturing of the soul and the body. Did the prayers quietly murmured over the sick, amid flickers of candlelight, infuse the air with healing? Or was it simply an act of kindness in a harsh landscape, like a soft word spoken amid tumultuous tides? In a playfully peculiar twist, consider some tales where the dispensaries of medicine were known as soul hospitals, suggesting a union more complex than patient and caregiver, a mutual sharing of spirits intertwined on the wheel of health and humanity. Imagine stepping into these spaces, a mosaic of kindness offered freely like a feast shared among friends. In this sacred dance of care, monks and nuns were more than healers. They were gatekeepers offering sanctuary amid a frayed world. So, as tonight's shared journey guides you to the edge of dream-filled fields, let these echoes of compassion neither fade nor falter. Nestle into the comforting arms of history, allowing tales of gentle service and solace to settle around you like a warm, familiar shawl, whispering stories into your heart as you surrender to restful slumber. In these moments, you drift not just sideways through time, but upward into empathy itself, where understanding and gentleness flow as ceaselessly as the night sky, endless and tender, guiding you on wings of time woven with starlit dreams, floating gently ever onward. Sweet dreams, dear wanderer, held softly in the history kissed by moonlight, as the night's gentle embrace deepens, cradling you like a lullaby that sweetens the silence. We take another gentle step into the evocative world of medieval hospitals. This chapter leads us into the realm of remedies and potions, a concoction of reality and alchemy, where each vial and recipe held the possibility of hope, as tentative and wondrous as a morning mist catching the first golden rays of dawn. Imagine the cool, shadowed spaces of an apothecary's chamber, shelves lined with glass jars and clay pots, each containing peculiar ingredients sourced from across continents. Dried herbs hung like garlands, their once vibrant greens now muted, though steeped with secrets and stories whispered through generations. This sanctuary of scents and shades was where herbalists wielded their knowledge, bridging the wisdom of the old world with the hopeful determination of the new. It was a time when healthcare bore a touch of art, a dose of science, and a sprinkle of the mystical. A delightful morsel for your musings is the idea of the four humors, a theory that saw the human body as a delicate balancing act of blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, with each one a channel leading to health or illness. Physicians and herbalists crafted treatments to realign these bodily elements, a task akin to adjusting a radio's fine-tuning in search of the right frequency, all the while hoping it would hum harmoniously to the beat of life's quiet symphony. For example, a sprig of sage might be used to clear the lungs, its fragrance like a waft of time itself, unwinding the knots formed in the chest by hours spent in cold stone chambers. Or, perhaps, the elusive root of valerian would bring about restfulness, its earthy scent curling through dreams, a soothing balm for frayed nerves. With each potion brewed, there lingered the unspoken enchantment of curing, where confidence danced precariously alongside uncertainty. Now, here's where modern scholars find themselves still stirred by debate. How effective were these medieval remedies, really? Were they truly healing? Or did they merely offer a comforting ritual, a tangible hope in uncertain times? Medicine in those days was as much about the power of belief as it was about the physical properties of the ingredients. Like wearing a favorite cozy sweater, not just for its warmth, but the familiar comfort it breathes into weary bones. Side by side with these potions, you'd find parchments inscribed with instructions as intricate as a poet's verse, detailing the craft of distillation and extraction. These rustic manuals, although fleeting as autumn leaves, carried the promise that somewhere amid the fibers of the natural world lay hidden answers to recovery. Every brew, steeped in history, served as a testament to ancient wisdom, an echo of survival harmonizing with today's bustling pursuit of scientific inquiry. As you relax into the evening's embrace, feeling these tales settle like snowflakes upon your consciousness, there's a sense of interconnectedness. Across time's vast expanse, people have always reached out, crafting solutions and dreams alike, kneading them into the mosaic of life with care. And in holding these stories close, we honor not only the curious endeavors of yore, but the enduring spirit of humanity bound together through the act of caring. So, journey now toward dreamscapes cradled in the moon's gentle glow. Enveloped in these historical revelations, turn soft whispers under your starry cover. Let these ancient miracles weave through your slumber, offering solace and sweetness, anchoring your soul against the turning tides of tomorrow. Rest easy and let the night sing you softly into the embrace of sleep, enriched by whispers long shared, cherished ever anew.